is birthright citizenship, that constitutional right that if you're born on U.S. soil, regardless of your parents' ethnicity or heritage or immigration status, you are America. Welcome to America. Is that in jeopardy? Is it on life support? Will the United States Supreme Court even take up the appeal that Donald Trump has filed to try to destroy birthright citizenship with a stroke of a pen in his executive orders? We cover it all on Legal AF, the podcast. And here's a clip. So while we're at the Supreme Court, Katie, why don't you talk about birthright citizenship? Some people might be thinking, didn't we do this already? There was a birthright citizenship thing about nationwide injunctions. But why don't you catch everybody up about sort of what happened with birthright citizenship several months ago, I think back in April.
God, when was that? When was that, by the way? It feels like it was 10 years ago.
I know. And then why this? What is this new appeal on the substance and the merits of birthright citizenship that Donald Trump's trying to
So I had to double check. It was June 27th, by the way. It was a decision, though it does feel like it was 10 years ago. Okay, so 14th Amendment birthright citizenship, we all know what it means. You're born here on U.S. soil, regardless of who your parents are. If you're born here on U.S. soil, you are a United States citizen. Donald Trump issued an executive order one of the first things he did when he got back into the Oval Office, basically saying, if you were born, I think the date of the executive order was like in February, like if you were born after this date, to hell with the idea that you're going to have any type of U.S. citizenship, and you had to be born under certain conditions to not have the citizenship afforded to you. So obviously, groups sued appropriately, and the Supreme Court back in June actually said, we're not touching the substantive issue of the constitutionality of the 14th Amendment when it comes to birthright citizenship. We're just saying that it's not appropriate in all cases to issue nationwide injunctions blocking executive orders, for example, like the one that was being attacked that was done by Donald Trump. So the actual, what we call merits, the actual merits case, the actual, substance of the constitutionality of that 14th Amendment, that is now being asked by the Trump administration, courtesy of John Sauer, late on Friday, at least 2 petitions for writs of certiorari. Remember, with the Supreme Court people, the Supreme Court doesn't have to take those appeals. The Supreme Court can exercise its discretion and grant cert to be able to take certain cases. We reasonably anticipate they're going to take this one. They've already ruled on this issue of nationwide injunctions. But late Friday, the Trump administration said, take up at least 2 decisions from 2 different courts in this country that have sustained the argument that, yes, the 14th Amendment does apply to all people that are born on U.S. soil. But what's weird about it, Mike, is that the Trump administration doesn't say expedite this, as in rule on this like very quickly, but they made it clear they wanted it to be heard at least in this 2025-2026 term.
Yeah, that's where we are. So we're finally going to get this briefing, assuming that this, which they will, the Supreme Court is going to grant it. This is not on the emergency docket. This is on the writ of certiorari. 3 briefs, a lot of friends of the court briefs are going to be filed here. And for those that wonder, just a teachable moment here for a minute, these amicus briefs, friends of the court,
very important.
Were very important. Where parties, they're not from the parties, but they're from stakeholders in America that want to be heard. Could be elected. It depends on the issue. It could be immigration rights people here for birthright citizenship. It could be people. Yeah, it would be a lot of that, and other people that are opposing it. The Chamber of Commerce. There'll be some hump side that will take the opposite side and file. And a lot of times, a very compelling amicus with great research or data will find its way into a majority opinion or a concurrence or a dissent. Sometimes we saw it last term. Out of the blue, the Supreme Court will say, we want to hear from one of the amicus brief sponsors, and they're arguing at oral argument, even though they're not parties to the case. So we'll have to see who they allow to file amicus briefs. Usually it'll be a pile of them. And then there'll be, after full briefing, and maybe some additional briefing that the Supreme Court asks for. It depends how they frame the issue. And that's very important because we usually know where their heads are at in terms of the votes based on the question that's being asked, the issue presented by the court is framed, then they'll want to know. Like we just saw recently, they just framed an issue. And one of the issues they want to have, does a federal judge have the ability to reinstate someone who's been fired from a federal officer job? I'm like, oh, here we go. Now they're going to say the federal judges don't have the power to reinstate the Lisa Cooks of the world or others, even though in every other context, employment context, of course they would. But here it's, second, Article 2 powers are being, God forbid we impede Article 2. They don't give a crap, the Supreme Court, about the Congress being treated like a doormat by the president, willingly, complicitly. I'm talking about the MAGA. They don't care about that. They don't care about the judges having their rights trampled on and not being supported and being abused by Donald Trump. But God forbid we step on the toes of Article 2 power of the president, right?
Yeah. And, I wanted to just really kind of quickly on the birthright citizenship thing. I just wanted to share with our viewers kind of, we all know it's grounded in racism and white Christian nationalism. That's the whole animus, right, towards people that are just, quote, others, because that's really kind of the framework within which these executive orders are being done. But, Mike, I wanted to say this at Sauer in his petitions, and he says the following, which really bothers me. He says, the government has a compelling interest in ensuring that American citizenship, the privilege that allows us to choose our political leaders, is granted only to those who are lawfully entitled to it. The lower court's decisions invalidated a policy of prime importance to the president and his administration in a manner that undermines our border security, end quote. So let's unpack that for just a second. Number one, the president and his administration, it's not really his administration, right? It's ours. This is supposed to be somebody who's supposed to be representing the country, not just a select group of people. And the fact that Sauer is framing it in a voting context, we should just dispense with the falsities and the lies that you have people that are not U.S. citizens that are voting. We know that those allegations of voter fraud, that there are very, very, very tiny examples of that happening, one. And two, the fact that they also are framing this in the context of border security, it's once again feeding into this bigger picture mission statement of immigration for this Trump term 2.0. And so when he writes this, it just makes my skin crawl because it's a total declaration of racism. It's this idea that you don't deserve to be here. And for somebody like Sauer, Trump, and others that clearly are children of immigrants making this statement just fucking bothers me. But sorry about that. I had to digress for a hot second, Mike. I'm sorry.
There's maybe because of where your people and my people came from.
Yes.
Maybe because my people came over, my great-grandfather came over through Ellis Island on a boat, and instead of being sent into a concentration or detention camp, he came through a naturalization center where he came out the other side with a green card and then U.S. citizenship and was a proud American. My grandfather, as an 8-year-old with his uncles, came over without his mother on a boat from Europe and went through a naturalization process and was a proud American. My father was born here. My mother was born here. I don't know your family background. Your parents were born abroad, right?
They were born in Korea, in South Korea. And I was born here in the United States, and we want to have people that come from different places to be able to be here. That's what makes it so great. And so for this to be the pursuit of just to ethnically cleanse this country, to only be of a certain ilk or a certain type of color or whatever, it's just so disgusting to me.
Right. And listen, you see it today. We just had reporting that they picked up the superintendent of, is it Spokane, Washington? Who's been in this country for like 20 years. He's the superintendent of schools. They picked him up because they said he stayed over on a student visa. And now they took him away in chains, a black man. You and I know the former superintendent of Miami, who's out in LA, who's very public.
He's so good. Yeah.
Who's very public that he came here illegally.
Yeah.
Originally. Now, I don't know what his current status is. I don't mean to out him here, but
No. But he speaks very publicly about it. But to your point, though, these are people that, and by the way, I'm not all superintendents, because that Oklahoma superintendent guy, that crazy guy, no.
Mr. I need a turning point chapter in every classroom.
Mr. I was, showing porn in a Board of Education meeting. Yeah, that guy. But no, we have school superintendents that are investing in our children's futures, and they're some menace to society. It's just a lot of it is just, again, if people will speak bluntly with friends and family and colleagues and others about what is really going on here, it's an inescapable truth. And people try to whitewash it, no pun intended, or maybe pun intended, but you got to speak bluntly about this stuff.
I mean, look, I still have, the Supreme Court is so whacked, and the MAGA 6 are so whacked. I just don't think they're going to allow by executive order Donald Trump to change the clear meaning of the 14th Amendment as interpreted by a 1901 case. I just don't see them allowing if the states want to change this, if we want to do a constitutional amendment to change it, to change the 14th Amendment, so be it. But Donald Trump with an executive order to change the interpretation of the plain language of the 14th Amendment, I even with this Supreme Court, I think that's a bridge too far.
And they don't have to take it. That's the thing. Exactly. This court doesn't have to take it. And if it doesn't take this case, the Supreme Court doesn't take this case, then those existing orders,
3 blocks. That's right.
It's okay.
Welcome back. Can a president, with a stroke of a pen, with an executive order, change 100 years of constitutional precedent? Well, when you have a guy like Clarence Thomas who says the quiet part out loud and says that he doesn't think precedent is gospel that he has to follow, you're in trouble. I'm glad you're here. Take a moment, whether you're on Midas Touch or you're on Legal AF, hit the free subscribe button and come over to the other and do the subscribe button all over again. That's how you support independent commentary and journalism like this. Come over to Legal AF, the Substack as well, where we're building an amazing community. We're going to hit 100,000 subscribers very soon. I do 2 live reports a day there, plus a lot of other written commentary, all at the intersection of law and politics. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popak. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.